30 minutes before I was supposed to get married, the church was packed, the music was playing, and my entire family was waiting. But everyone was looking for the one person who mattered most, the bride. I was standing at the altar, my hands were clammy, and the starched collar of my tux suddenly felt like it was choking me. A murmur was rippling through the pews, a sound that started as concerned whispers, but was slowly turning into something that felt a lot like pity. I thought she'd gotten cold feet. I thought she'd left me. The truth, it turned out, was so much more complicated. Just as the panic in my chest was about to boil over, the heavy oak doors of the church creaked open. But it wasn't my fiancé, Chloe. It was my best man, Mark, and he wasn't alone. He walked in, not with my beautiful bride, but with a newborn baby in his arms and a look of absolute devastation on his face. He was carrying a small, folded note. A note that would detonate my entire world. It just said, "She's yours now." To really get the size of the crater that day left in my life, you have to understand what Chloe and I had. This wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was slow, deliberate, the kind of love that feels like coming home. We met in college, not at some party, but in the quiet, dusty aisles of the campus library. I was hopelessly lost trying to find a book on macroeconomics, and she was a history major who just happened to know her way around. She had this laugh, this incredible, uninhibited laugh that could fill a room and make you feel like you were the only person in it. Our first date was a total disaster. I took her to an Italian restaurant that I thought was charming, but it turned out to be in the middle of a very loud, very messy renovation. We had to shout over the sound of power saws, but we ended up laughing so hard we cried. That was us. We always found the humor in the chaos. We built a life on a foundation of inside jokes and shared looks that said more than words ever could. We were together for 6 years. We even survived a year of long distance when she got a research grant in another state. We navigated the awkwardness of meeting each other's families, who were polar opposites. Mine is a loud, sprawling clan of extroverts with an opinion on everything. Hers, a quiet, reserved couple who measured every word. But we made it work. We were a team. I loved her more than I ever thought possible. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was my best friend, the person who knew I hated olives, but would eat them on pizza just because it made her happy. The proposal happened on a Tuesday. It was ordinary, unremarkable, and absolutely perfect. We were in our tiny apartment, the one with a leaky faucet and the window overlooking a brick wall. We were making dinner, and she was telling me about her frustrating day at the museum where she worked. And I just looked at her, flour on her nose, hair in a messy bun, and I just knew. I couldn't wait another second. I didn't have a speech ready. I just got down on one knee right there on our worn-out linoleum floor, with a ring I'd been hiding in my sock drawer for 6 months. I told her I couldn't imagine a single day of my life without her. She said yes before I even finished the question, her tears mixing with the flour on her cheeks. Wedding planning was, well, it was wedding planning. Stressful, expensive, and full of 1,000 tiny decisions that felt huge at the time. We argued about napkin colors and the font on the invitations. We debated a live band versus a DJ. Her mom wanted a traditional, formal wedding. My mom wanted a casual, backyard barbecue. Chloe and I were stuck in the middle, just trying to plan a day that felt like us. But through it all, I never once doubted that we were doing the right thing. Every time the stress got to be too much, she'd just take my hand and say, "Hey, look at me. At the end of the day, it's just you and me. The rest is just noise." And she was right. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, she seemed so happy. Genuinely, incandescently happy. She was excited about her dress, the flowers, the ridiculous cake topper she'd found online with a tiny groom tripping over the bride's gown. There were no red flags, no warning signs, no late-night confession of doubt. In fact, the night before the wedding, she came over to my parents' house, where I was staying, just to drop off a small gift. It was a pair of cufflinks engraved with the coordinates of the library where we first met. She kissed me and said she couldn't wait to be my wife. Her last words to me in person were, "See you at the altar, Daniel." There was absolutely nothing to suggest that in less than 24 hours, she would just vanish, leaving nothing but a gaping hole where our future was supposed to be. The morning of the wedding was pure chaos, but the good kind. The kind filled with energy and excitement. I woke up at my parents' house to the smell of bacon and my dad blasting his favorite oldies playlist. My brother and my best man, Mark, were already there, making terrible jokes and trying to figure out how to fold a pocket square. I remember feeling weirdly calm in the middle of it all. It was like being in the eye of a hurricane. Everyone around me was buzzing with nervous energy, but I just felt ready. This was it. The day I got to marry Chloe. I texted her around 9 a.m. "Morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you." She replied almost instantly, "Never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. The dress is even more perfect than I remembered. You're going to lose it." Her last message to me. I must have read it 100 times since. Never been more sure of anything in my life. It was a promise. Or so I thought. We got to the church an hour early. My mom was fussing with my tie, my dad was shaking everyone's hand, and Mark was trying to keep me from pacing a hole in the floor. Guests started to arrive, and the place filled up with happy chatter. I saw Chloe's parents, Robert and Eleanor. Eleanor gave me a tight hug, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Robert shook my hand and said, "Take care of our girl, Daniel." The ceremony was supposed to start at 2 p.m. At 1:45, the organist started playing. I stood at the altar with my brother and Mark and watched the pews fill up. Everyone I loved was there. Everything was perfect. 2 p.m. came and went. The music kept playing. I looked at Mark. He gave me a reassuring nod. "Brides are always late," he whispered. "It's in the rule book." 2:05. The chatter died down. People started looking around, their smiles a little more forced. I caught my mom's eye. She gave me a thumbs up, but her brow was furrowed with worry. 2:10. The wedding planner, Patricia, scurried up to me. "Her phone is going straight to voicemail," she hissed, her composure starting to crack. "The maid of honor hasn't seen her for almost an hour. She said Chloe just needed to get some air." Needed to get some air. The phrase just hung there, heavy and ominous. My heart started to pound. Cold feet. The thought slammed into me. It couldn't be. Not Chloe. Not us. 2:15. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. My hand started to shake. This wasn't right. I walked over to her parents. "Have you heard from her?" I asked, my voice strained. Eleanor's face was pale. "No," she whispered. "She wouldn't do this. She was so happy." Robert just stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. He looked like a man trying to hold back a tidal wave. The calm I had felt was gone, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. The air in the church felt thick, suffocating. Every tick of the clock was like a drumbeat of doom. 200 pairs of eyes were on me, their faces a mix of confusion, concern, and a dawning horror that mirrored my own. Where was she? At 2:20, real panic set in. This wasn't a late bride anymore. This was a missing person. Patricia was on her phone, making frantic calls. The maid of honor, Jessica, was in the bridal suite, sobbing uncontrollably. I went back to see her, hoping for any clue. The room was pristine. Her dress was hanging on a hook, a ghostly specter of what was supposed to be. Her shoes were on the floor. Her makeup was laid out. Her purse was on a table. I opened it. Wallet, keys, everything was there. But her phone was gone. What happened? I asked Jessica, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know, she wailed. We were getting ready. She was laughing. Then she got a text. She looked at her phone, and her face just changed. She went completely white. A text? From who? What did it say? I demanded. I don't know. She just said, I need to step outside for a minute. I need some air. She left her purse and just walked out with her phone. Jessica looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. That was 45 minutes ago, Daniel. I thought she was just clearing her head. I swear, I thought she'd be right back. A text message. That's what started this. But what could it possibly say to make her walk out of her own wedding? I sent Mark to check the parking lot and the nearby streets. My brother, Sam, started calling local hospitals, his voice tight with fear. The whole beautiful day was collapsing in on itself, moment by excruciating moment. I called Mark. Anything? No, man. Her car is still here. I've walked 3 blocks in every direction. Nothing. It's like she just vanished. He paused. Daniel, what the hell is going on? I don't know, I said, the words feeling hollow. An hour had passed. A full hour. Some guests were starting to leave, giving me these sorrowful, pitying looks. Chloe's mother was openly weeping now, her husband holding her with a look of stoic disbelief. The priest, Father Michael, put a hand on my shoulder. Son, he said gently, we may need to make a decision about the service. Make a decision. The words felt like a punch to the gut. Canceling the wedding meant admitting she was really gone. How could she do this? To me, to our families? If she had doubts, why not just talk to me? Why disappear? The question swirled in my head, a venomous mix of confusion and betrayal. I told Mark to go to her apartment. Maybe she went there. Maybe she left a note. Maybe there was an answer, any answer, waiting for us. He rushed out, his face grim. So I waited, standing there in my tux, a groom in a graveyard of dead dreams. The minutes stretched on forever. 2:30 became 2:45. 2:45 became 3 o'clock. The church was half empty now. The remaining guests spoke in hushed tones, like they were at a funeral. And in a way, they were. Just as I was about to tell Father Michael to send everyone home, the great wooden doors at the back swung open again. For a split second, my heart leaped. Chloe. But it wasn't her. It was Mark. And the look on his face told me this wasn't good news. It was something far, far worse. Mark stood in the doorway, but he seemed to bring a shadow with him. He wasn't running or shouting. He was just walking slowly down the center aisle, his eyes locked on mine. And in his arms, wrapped in a simple blue blanket, was a baby. Everyone fell silent. The whispers died. The only sound was Mark's shoes on the stone floor. Time slowed to a crawl. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. A baby? Why did Mark have a baby? He looked like he was in a trance. His face was ashen. This was my best friend, the guy I'd known since kindergarten, the guy who could always make me laugh. There was no humor in his eyes now. Only shock and a deep, profound sadness. He stopped about 10 feet in front of me, right where Chloe should have been. He just stood there, holding the baby. It was tiny. A small, wrinkled face peeked out from the blanket, sound asleep, totally oblivious to the storm it had just been carried into. Mark? I finally managed to whisper. What is this? Where's Chloe? He swallowed hard, like he was trying to force the words out. Daniel, he said, his voice raw. I went to her apartment. The door was unlocked. She was gone. He took a shaky breath. This was on the kitchen counter, in a basket. With one hand, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. A note. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The reason. He held it out to me. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely take it. It was a single page, torn from a notepad Chloe always kept by the phone. Her handwriting, that elegant script I knew so well, was scrawled across it. Just 4 words. 4 words that turned my entire world inside out. The note said, "She's yours now." I read it once. Then twice. The words swam before my eyes. She's yours now. It didn't make any sense. The baby? Chloe. The note. It was a riddle I couldn't solve. What does this mean? I looked up at Mark, pleading. Mark, what does this mean? He just shook his head, his own eyes filling with tears. I don't know, man. I don't know. And then he did the one thing that made it all terrifyingly real. He gently placed the baby into my arms. I instinctively wrapped my arms around the warm bundle. The baby stirred, made a tiny sound, and snuggled into my chest. It was so light, so fragile. I was holding a life. And in that moment, standing in my wedding suit at the altar of my ruined future, holding a baby I'd never seen before, with a note from the woman I loved telling me it was mine, I felt the floor drop out from under me. The shock was a physical blow. The gasps from the guests, my parents rushing toward me, it all faded into a dull roar. All I could feel was the gentle weight in my arms, and the crushing weight of those 4 words. She's yours now. The next few hours are a blur. I remember my dad's hand on my shoulder, firm and grounding. I remember my mother's face, etched with pain, as she looked from me to the baby. I remember Father Michael announcing that the wedding was canceled. The church emptied in a silent, somber procession. What do you say to a man who was just left at the altar and handed a baby in the same breath? Chloe's parents were the last to approach. Eleanor was inconsolable. Robert just stared at the baby, his face a mask of rage and confusion. What is this, Daniel? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. What did you do? I don't know, I said, the words like ash in my mouth. I swear to you, I have no idea. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He looked at me like I was a criminal. He and his wife left, and I was alone. We went back to my parents' house, which was supposed to be for a party, but was now a crisis center. My mom, a retired nurse, immediately took charge of the baby, sending my brother out for diapers, formula, a crib, all the things I never thought I'd need. I just sat on the couch, still in my tux, holding the note. I called the police. A weary officer took my statement. A runaway bride? It happens, he said. She'll probably turn up. The baby part was unusual, he admitted, but with no sign of foul play, Chloe wasn't officially missing. She was an adult who chose to leave. They'd file a report. That's all they could do. It felt like nothing. She didn't just leave. She left a child. My child? Was this baby even mine? Was Chloe the mother? The note was so cruel. She's yours now. Was it a confession of paternity, or was she just handing off responsibility? That first night was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep. I just sat in a chair and watched this nameless baby breathe in a travel crib. Who was Chloe? The woman I knew. The kind, loving, responsible woman I'd loved for 6 years would never do this. She wouldn't abandon a child. She wouldn't inflict this kind of pain. So who was the person who wrote the note? Around 3 a.m., I went through her purse, which Mark had brought from the church. I was looking for anything, any clue. And that's when I found it. Tucked into a small side pocket was a faded old photograph. It was a picture of a younger Chloe, maybe 16 or 17, standing with another girl I didn't recognize. They were smiling, arms around each other. But what caught my eye was the bracelet on Chloe's wrist, a silver charm bracelet I'd never seen before. On the back of the photo, in faded ink, were 2 words: Chloe and Sarah. Sarah. The name meant nothing to me. In 6 years, Chloe had never, not once, mentioned anyone named Sarah. I stared at the picture, then at the sleeping baby. A new piece of the puzzle had just appeared, but it only made the mystery deeper. Who was Sarah? And what did she have to do with the day my entire life fell apart? It's been 3 months. The tux is in a box in the back of my closet. The wedding gifts have all been returned. The life I was supposed to have is gone, replaced by a new reality of 3 a.m. feedings, diaper changes, and a love so fierce and terrifying it literally takes my breath away. I named her Grace, because in all this wreckage, she felt like the only thing that could save me. She has Chloe's eyes. At least, I think she does. Some days I look at her and see the woman I loved, and the pain is so sharp I can barely breathe. Other days, I just see this tiny person who is completely my responsibility, and a whole different kind of fear takes over. Chloe is still gone. No word, no contact, nothing. Her bank accounts are untouched. Her social media is silent. It's like she walked out of that church and just ceased to exist. Her parents blame me. My parents worry about me. And I'm just trying to be a father. I'm a dad to a daughter I may or may not share DNA with. I'm a man grieving a woman who might be alive, or something else. The police see a runaway bride. They don't see the look in her eyes the night before, or the promise in her last text message. They don't know the Chloe I knew wouldn't do this. I still have the photograph. Chloe and Sarah. And I have the note. She's yours now. These are the only clues I have. Who is Sarah? And where is Chloe? I have to believe the answers are connected. I have to believe that something happened to her. Something to do with that text, that name, that past she never told me about. My life now has 2 missions. Be the best father I can be for Grace, and find out what really happened to her mother. I don't know where this path leads, but I have to follow it. For me, and for the little girl sleeping in the next room, who deserves to know her own story. What would you have done? What do you think happened to Chloe? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you want to follow this journey with me, make sure to subscribe. I have a feeling this story is far from over.